Hey, and welcome back to another Darkfall tutorial. Today we're going to be creating this animation here, and then in part 2 we're going to be creating some smoke. So in the third part we can combine that all together and get this animation here, this smoky hot tea sort of scene. So the first thing we want to do is create the cup itself. So I'm just going to split this window, and then I'm going to change this from the 3D view to the UV image editor. I'm going to use a reference image I found online. So I'm just going to press X and then open up our image. Now I like the shape of this cup, but the thing I don't like is the handle. It doesn't seem to fit the cup for me. So what I did is I found another image which is just for the handle's sake. So I'm just going to split this window again. And we can keep this one up here, but down here I want to delete this one. And then open up our second image. Again, you don't have to use reference images, you can do it freestyle, freehand, whatever you want to call it. But I'm just going to use these as a general idea. So I'm going to use that handle on this cup. Okay, so Shift S and make sure you save it. And I'm going to jump to front view. And I also want to hide this camera by pressing H, just so I can model the cup without this getting in the way. Okay, so let's focus on the cup first. Let's Shift A, and I'm going to add in a cylinder. Move this up a little bit. And Shift A, I'm going to add in a UV sphere. So let's just drag this down out the way. Tap into edit mode, and then vertice select mode, and then choose this vertex here, this top one. And if we hit Control and the plus button on the keyboard, we can increase the selection. So I'm going to press Control numpad plus a few times. And what I want to do is select more than half, so about here should be fine. Press X and I want to delete the faces. Tap out of edit mode, and on this one, select this cylinder here, tap into edit mode, face select mode, and I want to delete this face. In fact, we can delete the top one as well. Okay, so now we've got two objects, we want to combine them together. It's pretty simple. So if we go to front view, we select this first and just drag it up. And I want to leave a little bit of a gap, but first I want to scale this up so it's pretty much the same size. You can use the snapping tool if you want, but I'm just going to scale this by eye. And then drag it down a little bit so there's a gap. Okay, so now we've got the sphere selected. If we hold Shift and right click on the cylinder, and if we press Control and J, we can join this now. It's going to be one object. So when we tab back into edit mode, it's just one single object. So what we need to do now is just fill that face there. So if we go to Edge Select and hold Alt and right click, we can select this edge loop there. If we hold Control, Alt and then right click on this one as well, we can have them both selected. Then if we hit spacebar and type bridge, if you spell it properly, try again, bridge. We want to select bridge edge loops, and what that'll do is just fill those faces, fill that ring for us. Pretty simple. So I've noticed that when I scaled the sphere up it's a little bit too big, so I'm just going to select one of these edges. I'll just right click, Alt and right click on this edge here, scale this down a little bit. That should be fine, tab out of edit mode. Okay. We also want to drag this down because we want to match the cup, so let's just move this way down. Something about here should be fine. Yeah, something like that should be fine. I'm going to add Control R, add a couple of loop cuts there as well. I'm just going to move this up a bit so it's a bit more even. Okay, so the origin point's in the middle. What we need to do is tap into edit mode, A to select everything, and then if we just move this all the way up, just so the origin point's pretty much in the middle. So we want to make this a bit more flatter, so if we select the vertice select mode, select this vertex here, and we want to scale this, we want to move it around, but if we hit O first, it will enable proportional editing. So now when we move this vertex, it will manipulate the other faces around it as well, depending on how big you scroll up your middle mouse wheel. So I'm just going to scroll this up a little bit and make this a bit more flat. That should be fine. Okay, so now we can focus on the handle. So Shift A. I think I'm going to use a torus object. This should be fine. Yeah, let's rotate this on the X 90 degrees. We can also scale this down. And then move it over a bit. Move it on the X and the Z. So now what we can do, tab into edit mode. We still have proportional editing enabled, so we can select one of these vertices and just start grabbing it and moving it around. It's pretty simple now, just keep grabbing these vertices and just dragging it. Increase and decrease the proportional editing. You can see it's very simple, you just keep dragging the places, keep dragging the vertices and get the shape that you want. Okay, so I'm going to, still needs a little bit of work, but I'll come back to that. I'm going to Shift A and add in a circle. And this is going to be for the plate. So we're just going to go into edit mode, E to extrude, but make sure you have vertices select mode, otherwise it might not extrude properly. So E to extrude, S to scale. To scale this a little bit. Bring this up a little bit as well on the Z. E to extrude, S to scale. Then we go to front view, we just want to drag this up a little bit. Give it a bit of shape. Somewhere about here should be fine. You can see that it's way too big, so let's just scale it down a bit. Something like that should be good. So I'm just going to add a loop cut as well. And then I can give this a bit more shape to it, so S to scale. Then maybe drag it down. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so now we want to add some thickness to it. So with the cup selected, I'm just going to drag this out of the way so we don't see it anymore. Go to the modifiers tab and we want to give this a solidify. And again, how much thickness you put on this is entirely up to you. I'm going to say around here, 0.04. Again, we want to do the same for the plate. Maybe you want to make this a little bit different size. Let's go to 0.6 maybe. It's still looking very blocky, so we can go add modifier, subdivision surface. Looking a bit better there. Also we need to smooth shading as well, we can do that in a minute. In fact, we want to apply these solidify, so we can give this a base. So let's press Ctrl R to add a loop cut and just slide it down here. We're going to go to face select mode and select this ring of faces by pressing Alt and right clicking, and then we can E to extrude, just to have the little ridge here which holds the plate up. Okay, so it's rounding it off because of the modifier, so I'm going to tab into edit mode, Ctrl R, and try and add a loop cut here and just tighten these edges. I'm going to do the same for the bottom part, just to make it look a little bit sharper, a bit cleaner. I'm going to do the same for this top edge here. About here should be fine. And the same for the top bit. Ctrl R, just add a loop cut. And it just tightens the edges at the top. I want to do the same for the cup, so we just want to apply the solidify modifier. Before we add another modifier, I just want to tab into edit mode, select this ring of this ring, press Ctrl B and just add a little bevel, maybe increase the middle mouse button once, and do the same for this edge, just so it's not too sharp. So if we select the plate, add smooth surface, again make sure the cup's got a subdivision surface as well, looks a little bit better. Okay, so I just want to fill this face in. I left it as a hole, but let's just select this edge here, press E to extrude, then S to scale, just scale it down here, then E to extrude, S to scale, and then if we hit spacebar and type merge, we want to merge these at the center. So it has a little bit of a dip now. Okay, so now again with the cup selected, I just want to add a couple of loop cuts just to tighten those edges, like we did with the plate before. Also, this can be smoothed. Maybe we can add a subdivision surface modifier to it as well on the handle. Okay, I just want to scale this down as well, so if we press Alt S, we can scale this down as well. Just a bit too thick. That should be fine. Okay, pretty simple. Okay, so make sure you save it as well. I'm just going to close these windows out since we don't need them anymore. Okay, I'm just going to put a subdivision surface on this handle as well, make it a little bit smoother. So if we have this at render 1, we don't need it to be too smooth, it's not going to be seen that much. Everything else can be at render 2 but view 1, so we don't slow down our renders, slow down our viewport. Make sure we save that as well. We want to select this ring. Let's select this ring here by pressing Alt and right clicking. We want to press Shift D to duplicate it, and then press P because we want to separate this by selection. Tab back out of edit mode, and now we have these two pieces here. And with this ring selected, what we want to do, tab into edit mode, vertices select, and make sure we have all these selected. And we just want to scale it up a bit first, so it's inside the glass. Let's just drag it down, and then scale it up. And then if we hit E to extrude, and then S to scale to about here, and then E to extrude, then press E to extrude, S to scale, somewhere about here maybe. If you want, you could probably drag it down a little bit, and then E to extrude, S to scale, and again we want to merge these, so hit spacebar and then type merge, merge at the center. That should be fine. Okay, so now we have our focus. We just want to add some textures to it as well. So let's just split this window now, change this one to the node editor. And what I want to do is just add a couple of textures to this, a couple of shaders to this. So let's first do the glass. Let's add a new texture. Let's name this whatever you want, doesn't really matter. Delete this diffuse, and what I'm going to do is just append in a PBR shader. If you don't have a PBR shader, what I'll do is leave a link in the description so you can go to a tutorial by Andrew Price. He did a really good tutorial how to make these, so credit goes to him for this shader. I'm just going to change this to white. This is going to be for the porcelain. The roughness, let's have a look. Let's try 0.3. Yeah, I'm just going to bump this up a tiny bit more, 0.323 maybe. And then the reflection, I want it to be maybe 0.2. Maybe a little bit more. So now I want to select the handle and select the saucer, and then select the cup, then Control L, and what we can do is link the materials. So now all these have the same material, the same shader. Now for this one, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do for this. This is going to be a cup of tea, so I'm going to change this to glass. The colour I'm not too sure, so for right now let's just give this an orangey colour. I will come back later on and refine this colour, so at the end of the video I'll post all the values that I used for it, so you want to check that out, just jump to the end. For now I'm just going to try this hex value, that's far too orange. But again, I'll come back and change this later on, so I'm just going to use this as a placeholder for now. Okay, so what else do we need? Well, so let's go to the world settings, and what we need to do is add an environment texture. So use nodes, and then select this button here next to color, select environment texture, and again you can use any environment texture you want. I won't be able to share this one since I don't own it, but there's plenty of them to be found. There's loads of different ones that you can use. It doesn't really make a difference. This is just for the shadow, for the lighting, and for the reflections. Now let's align the camera. So I'm just going to put somewhere like this, because I want this animation to start off quite high and then zoom in slowly to the cup. So let's start in position here, should be fine. Let's give this a quick render, see how it looks. Yeah, already I can see that that orange is far too much. But also we've got some problems there with the liquid, so we need to change that. And also the background can be a little bit higher quality. So let's go to the background settings. Let's go down to settings in the world set properties. I want to increase this now to say 2045, this sample. And we also want to fix this shading issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete these. So select this face here, or select this ring, and then increase the selection, delete that. Select this ring of faces, E to extrude, S to scale. I think it's because I moved it down as well, so that's probably the issue. And then just press F to add a face. So now that should be fine. So my apologies, I should have done this the first time. Okay, so let's animate the camera. I want the camera to be still, but then start moving on, say, frame 21 maybe. So press I to add a keyframe, and you want location and rotation. So lock rot, which is for location, rotation. And let's go to jump ahead to say frame 130 something, maybe 140. And then I want to reposition the camera so it's a little bit closer. And G on the Z as well. Maybe a little bit of different rotation as well. So something like this. Press I to add a keyframe, location, rotation. There we go. We've got very simple animation. So very simple camera movement. You can take this more complex. You can do different movements, different things. But if you want to change the motion, make sure you're on the same frame that you added the keyframe. Move things around and then just press I again to add the same location, rotation. So you just want to make adjustments. It's very easy to do. What I'm going to do is just join this window. So when you've refined the camera movement and you're happy with everything, we can move on. I want to start by modeling the background. I'm going to do this in time-lapse because there's quite a few objects that I want to start modeling. What I will do is change some of these settings first. What I will do is leave a link in the description where you can download the startup file. But yeah, I want to change some of these settings. We're going to make a PNG image sequence, so make sure where you save your image to, make sure you set up a new folder. Later name this whatever you want, because later on we're going to be adding another image sequence. So I'm just going to create another one. This one will be for the next tutorial. So it's going to be the PNGs for the smoke. So make sure you select the folder that you want to save the PNGs to. Let's see, what else do we need? We can select this button here because we're going to be rendering an animation. So make sure that's selected. The frames, the samples, you can do whatever you want. I'm just going to do 100 for now. And I will come back later on and change these light paths to make things run a little bit faster. So I'm just going to fix a few things now and model a few things in time-lapse so you don't have to wait around. But again, if you want to download the startup file, there'll be a link in this description. But yeah, so finish off your scene, then you can render it out as an image sequence and then move on to part 2. Okay, so the camera actually stopped while I was still modeling things, but essentially this is where I ended up with, and I'll just show you what I did. I figured out a colour for the tea. So we have the teapot, we also have a little thing that's next to the teapot, we have a spoon, we have a fork, we have a chocolate cake. So we have a few different objects here, and again all these will be used. Apart from the texture for the background, I won't be able to share that since I don't own the texture. Everything else I'll be able to share, so there'll be a link in the description if you want to use that. I also added an empty for the focal point, so Shift A, add an empty. Then I selected the camera. This is for the focal blur. Go up to the camera properties, and then what we'll do is select limits so we can see where the limits are. Change this to f-stop, and your focus point wants to be the empty, and then just choose the number to be whatever you want. The T, I nailed down a shader for it, so I'll just show you what I did. It's very simple, it's just this glass and this glass mixed together with a texture. And what it is, the texture, as we can see, we isolate that, it's just showing very dark on one side and then the other colour in the middle, so it's very simple. These shaders, if I just show you the colours, this one here, I'll show you the hex value so you can pause the video and use the same hex if you want. Same for this one. And the roughness, a tiny bit of roughness to it. So I also increased the render samples to be 200. So make sure it's PNG. And the light paths, I see I reduced quite a few things to sort of speed up the render time, but these light paths will need to change when we render the smoke, so keep that in mind. And this is what a still image of it. So we still have a bit of noise here. It is a very grainy as well, but it took like over 3 minutes to render one single frame. So when I render this animation now, it's going to take quite a while. Maybe render it overnight. That's why I shortened the timeline as well. So yeah, if you want to render out this animation now, we can move on to part 2. So this is what you should end up with in this part.